So here we are in Boston at the Dell Storage Forum 2012. I'm with Carter George, the Executive Director of Storage Strategy.
That's correct.
And of course I'm at Saipetch. So I thought we'd sit down with Carter and talk a little bit about some of the more strategic and long-term visions about how different things in the Dell storage line play together with regards to some of the acquisitions and kind of where you see things going. So kind of just to start off with, I mean, this morning you had painted a picture around how there's intelligence in the storage arrays, there's software and hardware being combined at the server level, and those things are going to start to play together over, well, in the near term and the long term. Can you kind of give some background on what you guys have today and how those bits and pieces fit together from a storage and server and software in between perspective?
Yeah, we built a portfolio, are building a portfolio at Dell through acquisition, and so we've acquired companies like EqualLogic and Compellent and so forth, and people are familiar with those products, but as we go forward and we invest in those, you're going to start to see a Dell personality emerge, where we start to do things that those companies hadn't done and maybe couldn't ever have done as standalone companies. And I think in every case we've at least doubled the size of engineering of the companies we acquired. And the reason for that is there are a few areas that we think are really important and that we want to invest in getting sort of consistency and compatibility in certain areas across the portfolio. One of those areas that we think is very important is what we call better together with servers. At Dell, we're not just a storage company, we're also a server and a networking company, and people increasingly want to see those things work well together. And in particular, as servers get faster, they have more cores, they have higher clocks, they have better buses and all that. The job of storage is to feed those. You're running applications up there, they need the data, and we think a key part of having servers and storage work better together is bringing the data closer to the CPU.
Sure.
And so we have in mind, sort of over time breaking down the barriers of the traditional definition of storage as a thing with sheet metal, with disks in it. It's going to be stretched out in a variety of ways, and one of the most important is extending storage up into the server. That means tiering up into the server, it means caching in the server, it means taking advantage of new hardware that's in the server to be a place where you extend your storage up there for performance and other benefits.
And some of those things actually seem like they cut across engineering silos inside of Dell. How does that kind of work behind the scenes when you start to paint, not necessarily converge from a network server storage perspective, but now you're getting really into extending the features of one aspect of something. So in this case, we're talking storage. How does that look from an engineering perspective from the different groups that are inside of Dell?
Well, it's become a real priority, and servers, storage, and networking all eventually report up to the enterprise product group under Brad Anderson. And Brad has made it a real priority for the engineering groups of those three pieces in particular to work together to create joint products in places where those lines do blur. And for example, in the caching, we did a bunch of work in software to make the Compellent cache extend up into the server. But that's leveraging important things that they did across that whole generation of servers to put new cache cards and new networking and so forth in place there. So, that goes back, over a year, maybe a year and a half, to the design and development of those new servers, and then how we would take advantage of that with software.
Yeah, what's actually really incredible to me is the fact that it's not just the concept of bundling hardware together in an integrated package and shipping it out with one SKU. This is really requiring a lot of engineering effort on your part. And maybe it's not huge engineering lift in the individual piece part components, but the story that you guys are starting to put together with the things like caching and tiering the cache. You know, a lot of the competitors kind of came out and everybody seems to be walking in that direction, but it wasn't like you guys just slapped a caching card in a server that didn't really talk to the storage array. You guys are actually at a point now where you're actually delivering some pretty incredible things.
Yeah, I think, we really try to start with understanding of what customers are trying to do, and then see if what we're developing is going to be useful. And anybody can cram a bunch of stuff in a chassis that doesn't have any a priori benefit for a customer.
Right.
If you're not doing something that makes it either, easier or better or faster or cheaper. And, if you look at what, to mention a competitor, I guess, what Cisco's done with UCS, they put networking and servers in a box.
Right.
But just doing that by itself isn't of that much benefit. They what they really did and why people are buying that is they made it easier to deploy virtual machines by moving some of the networking tasks down to a place where the server guy could do it easily. I mean, it's sort of interesting to me that in that case they're solving a problem that they created in the first place by, designing networks that were a pain in the ass. But, that's a good example of the way you want to do things, is to understand what is the pain point here, what is somebody trying to do, and can I make it substantively better for them. And so when we do these better together things, whether it's servers and storage or storage and networking or what have you, that's really, the starting point is to look at it from what's the day-to-day task that the admin does. What part of that is he or she finding to be annoying or time-consuming or painful, and then let's see if we can't make it better.
Now, if you look at, where you're headed in the direction, we can kind of go back to the caching example. What kinds of things were the goal with that particular project? Was it reducing costs? Was it enabling new workloads? It can be all of the above, but what kind of...
Well, the two things really are performance, just driving much higher levels of performance, and also an element of cost, which is to do that for a lot less money than it historically has taken. In that cache stuff I talked about this morning, you can put 4 of these cache cards in a server that do 250,000 IOPS each. So that's 1 million IOPS you could put in a server. Those cards are a couple of grand each. I don't know the exact pricing, but in that order of magnitude. So, even if you bought 4 of them and stuffed the whole thing full and got 1 million IOPS, you're still talking about something measured in single, tens of thousands of dollars. Try to get 1 million IOPS in a storage array from a traditional enterprise vendor. You're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're talking millions of dollars. And so, to get that kind of performance level for, a price that an average guy could afford is a big objective, and that in turn lets you do things like VDI, or workloads that maybe before you couldn't afford to do.
Switching gears just real quick here, you and I talked previously about how the acquisitions around Ocarina and some of the other technologies that Dell has acquired, there's a lot of intelligence in the software layer. Where do you see, especially when you talk about storage, where do you see the combined value of these things going? We talked a little bit about software appliances and these things becoming more of software personalities. How's that playing in the Dell Storage portfolio, medium to long term?
Yeah, the medium term, I'm not sure exactly what the pace of adoption is going to be, but longer term, we really see the hardware of storage commoditizing. I mean, all the interesting stuff in storage these days is software. Almost all of our products are essentially software products. They may be packaged with hardware and sold as a hardware product, but all the IP is in the software. And, I think what we will see in the 3 to 5 year time frame, let's say, is that more and more of the hardware will just be servers with disks. And people can buy those at very competitive prices, and separately buy the software that turns that into intelligent storage. And one of the things that changes is how responsive you can be to your demands. If you have a rack or 10 racks of servers with disks.
Yep.
You can decide at the last second whether a given server is going to be an application server,
Right.
or a LUN in a block storage product, or a little more space for an object store, or a filer,
Sure.
or whatever. You can wait and see what happens with your business, where the growth is, what the needs are, and just, you know, dynamically create resources as you need them.
Sure.
And that kind of flexibility is very important. And, you know, for a long time, you know, disk drives have been sort of the vehicle for capturing value from a customer. Right? Vendors charge a lot of money for a disk drive. If you put it in a storage product, they charge less money for the same disk drive you put in a server.
Right.
And, you know, at the rate of data growth, that's just not going to be feasible
Right.
long term. People are going to buy the thousands of disks that they need
Yep.
at a competitive price point. And so we want to start looking at ways to charge for value where the value really is,
Sure.
instead of using a disk drive as a proxy.
Right. Well, it's been great talking to you, and thanks a lot for you know, giving us this opportunity. So just wrapping it up, thanks Carter, and you know, hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.